What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Gamecite Chronicles, the console gaming podcast where we sit down each and every week to talk about video games. I'm your host, Bonfire, and this is episode number 11. Cruising on the numbers, 11 weeks in, and feeling good. Hope you're all doing well out there. Hope you had a good week, got some gaming in, and I'm recording this on Sunday, so this will go live tomorrow. Super early in the morning like we did last week just because it was another busy week. And actually, I just celebrated my birthday yesterday. So I got to get out. It was a beautiful day yesterday. Got to get outside, enjoy some sunshine, hang out with the fam. And it was a good day, you know. And I'm not going to say how old I'm getting, but let me just tell you, I'm getting up there and I certainly feel it. But it was a good birthday nonetheless. I hope you guys are doing awesome. And I thank you for tuning in to last week's episode. Still, downloads are going great, and it's just super awesome. So I hope you guys are enjoying the show. Now, remember, for the uninitiated, the best way you can support the show is to leave a comment, leave a rating on whatever platform you're listening, like on the YouTube video, and that's always great. Just like our friend Rob did, who left a comment on one of the last podcast clips on YouTube, and he wrote in and said, this was in relation to the Steel Rising game I was talking about, which looks really awesome, an upcoming game, an action RPG from the developers Spiders. He wrote in and said, the game looks like fun. I never finished Technomancer, but now I'm motivated to do so. Just some feedback content-wise. The amplitude sound wave overlay is annoying. I'd rather see different still shots of things than a static shot with an overlay. Not that you do that, of course, just an FYI. And I wanted to bring that up because I appreciate the feedback, first of all. Feedback is always great. It's always nice to hear what the viewers are thinking. So I really do appreciate that feedback, and it's good because I've kind of been toying with different things to do, different content ideas to toy with the show. And you know, over the last couple of weeks, I started doing clips of various news topics and things like that to have those as separate videos. And because we don't do a video podcast, I thought, having some form of visual, for the video might be good. And to some, I guess that's annoying. So I might toy with, just vocals, maybe over some still shots like you're talking about, just to see if it's more responsive. But again, I'm still kind of in the early stages of content, toying with things because we don't do video. I'm still contemplating on whether or not I want to do some sort of video shorts, maybe some reaction clips, things like that. I'll be honest and very candid and say one of the things that kind of prevents me from doing some of these things is just time. Just busy with personal life stuff, with work, because again, this is just a hobby of mine. This is just a side passion, if you will. And so, we got work, we got, house obligations, life obligations, and of course, my son, who just takes up so much of my time, the little monster running around. So, but I do appreciate that, and I will take that to heart, see what we can do, and let me know if you guys have any ideas. Like I said, this is great feedback. I love feedback. So again, if you have any feedback on the show, drop a comment, hit me up on Twitter, whatever, because I do appreciate and I take that to heart, and it's always good to get some criticism, get some feedback from your audience to help improve the show. It only makes things better. So thank you for writing in, Rob. I really do appreciate it. Now, also, don't forget, you can join the community over on Locals. That's where I kind of want to cultivate a community. It's a kind of an alternative platform that I want to support. So head over to the gamesitechronicles.locals.com. You can also listen to the podcast over there. And then once we get some folks over there, I think we can do some fun things and hang out and all that good stuff. So don't forget to do that. Also, follow us on Twitter at Gamecite Podcast. And lastly, remember, new episodes of the show go live on podcast platforms each Monday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Now, for this week's show, we've had some quite a bit of news drop this week. And Nintendo's been dropping some release dates that we're going to talk about here in just a moment. And that kind of inspired me for this week's main show topic, which is talking about what happened to these 5 games. So I've picked out 5 games that I've kind of been curious on, that what's going on, because they've kind of went dark. And so let's talk about that for a little bit. But before we get into that, and the games that we're playing, let's hit up on a couple news items, because like I said, it's been pretty busy week. I gotta say, lots of little tidbits of news have been dropping, especially on the Nintendo front. And so let's get into some of that real quick here. As I take a sip of my coffee. Well, actually, it's an espresso. I don't know if you guys like espresso, but this past Christmas I got a Nespresso because I've always wanted an espresso machine, and let me tell you, it is fantastic. It is a great way to start your day if you enjoy coffee, and it gets you going, man. I gotta say, it's good. It's very, very good. But anyways, the first piece of news I wanted to touch on is there have been some articles coming out that Sony is also looking into ads for free-to-play games. So if you recall from last week's episode, one of the things that we talked about in our Game Pass and PlayStation Plus conversation was that it was reported that Microsoft was looking into ways to incorporate advertising for free-to-play games, and not necessarily a monetary tool for Xbox and Microsoft themselves, but as a way to offer developers ways to make money. It seems to be the same thing that Sony's doing as well. So this was originally reported by Business Insider. I actually was referencing the Push Square article because Business Insider is a subscription-based reporting platform, so couldn't really read too much into that, but from Push Square did a nice summary of it. And they reported that Sony's experimenting with technology that would inject ads into free-to-play games. The idea is about encouraging developers to keep making free-to-play games, again, bring them to the platform and give them a way to monetize. The report also states that the goal of these ads are to appear in the game itself. So, like, you think of like posters, billboards, things like that, etc. So, like, presumably very natural. They also say that there could also be rewards for certain promos, like in-game currency, XP boosts, and these things are kind of similar to what we see in the mobile space, the mobile gaming space. And lastly, there's indication that Sony is considering charging for data on consumer privacy, so a way for Sony to make money kind of on the back end. Now, a friend of the show wrote me on Twitter as I kind of responded to this, and he said, his name is Rick, by the way. Rick, appreciate you. Shout out to you. He states, they can do it the right way and embed products and ads contextually in appropriate spots within the game. Or they could do the exact opposite and flood us with unwanted solicitations left and right. If they're smart, they'll do strategic product placement. And I got to say, from what it sounds like they're doing based on what's being reported, it seems like they're going to do the former. And I'd have to agree with you on that, because it does seem like the goal. And like we said with Microsoft and Xbox, I do think it's a way for them to attract talent and bring games to their platform. But I don't know. Anytime you talk about ads in video games, which again isn't new, when we've talked about that, it just feels kind of slimy. And you always kind of think about worst case scenario, like, if you think free to play games, you're probably thinking of multiplayer games, and so having to maybe watch some like 30-second ad in between, matches or something like that. And one of the things I gotta say is it's, again, as you kind of scroll through Twitter, scroll through the online ether, it's interesting to see some of the backlash to this. And again, this touches about what we talked about last week, I think, in this drive towards subscription services in gaming and what it means for the video games that we played. Now, we know the article itself and just the idea of placing ads and monetizing within free-to-play games isn't really necessarily tied to Game Pass and PlayStation Plus and these subscription services directly. But I think if you look at the trend of the gaming landscape, where we are currently today and where we're going seemingly within the industry, I do think it's absolutely related, because we're getting to a point where if everything is tied to subscription services, then I feel like you could make the argument that things are more so free to play and they're going to cater towards, the monetization you typically see in free to play games, live service games, etc. And this is just another step towards that. So it isn't too surprising. So again, I think kind of the ultimatum I have to ask, and for us to keep in mind, is this what we want in our games? And based on what I'm seeing kind of, in the online ether, a lot of people don't want this in their games. So I think we got to take a step back and also be very cautious and hesitant when we make steps towards subscription in gaming. Sure, it can make things, some of the games that we love more accessible and more affordable. Sure. And that's, again, I hate this term, but it's consumer friendly. But at the same time, I also think we have to realize what that means, because if we're not buying the games a la carte, then they have to make they've got to make money other ways. And what does that mean? Does that mean more live service games? Does that mean more microtransactions in games? Does that mean now we're going to have to experience ads in our video games? So just think about that, because I certainly don't want this, and I worry that this could lead to a marketplace or content on a subscription service that looks like Apple Arcade. Now, there are some good games on Apple Arcade, no doubt. There's definitely some wins, but you have to sift through so much garbage on there to get to the good games, and I don't want that in the video game sphere. And to a certain degree, we have that, but it's much easier to find the good stuff because it does bubble up to the surface when you can buy things a la carte. And there's worthwhile games to play. Again, if everything's on a subscription service on multiple platforms, and it's less about creating something that's worthwhile to play and more about attracting and maintaining your attention and then monetizing you off of that, giving you incentives to continue to play and pay for that, then games will change. The way games are made will change. And that's not a direction I'm super stoked on. Again, I'm not saying that single player games of the likes of, like maybe Elden Ring or, the typical first party PlayStation games are going to go away. But I think we're just going to see less of them because that's the focus. There'll just be fewer and far between. Now, I also saw someone on Twitter post an Office meme kind of about this, and I thought it was just so fantastic. I had to like it, and I think it puts this situation about ads being reported in video games pretty nicely. I think it sums it up nicely. And so it basically says, and I quote, "If they put ads in free-to-play games, but you value your time, the games aren't free to play anymore." And end quote. I thought that was pretty good. I thought that sums it up nicely and kind of puts a different perspective, because you're right. If you value your time, and as you should, your time is very important. That's one of the few things you only have a very limited amount of. And, if you value your time and you want to play free-to-play games and you don't like ads in those, and there's now ads in those, then you don't really value, you shouldn't be playing those because you don't value your time anymore. I don't know. I just thought it just really put a nice perspective on it. And I was like, okay, I think that's good. And, this gets into touches on a slightly different topic about games and whether or not they respect your time. And, there's a lot of open world games that just don't respect your time. It's just they're bloated. I think of some of the more recent Assassin's Creed games. Like, that's the word on the street with Valhalla, so to speak. But games that respect your time are definitely worthwhile. And I'm starting to think that if we go down this direction, we have free-to-play games and you're having to sit through ads, unless they're embedded. If they're embedded and look very natural, it's good product placement and things like that. Okay, I can live with that. But still, that perspective of respecting your time, I think, is worthwhile to consider. Now, another piece of news is Nintendo. They dropped a couple of pretty big release dates this past week. First, for Xenoblade Chronicles 3, that's now coming out July 29th. And then Splatoon 3, so I guess the year of the threes, that comes out September 9th. So for Xenoblade Chronicles 3, I don't know if you guys can hear that background. I got the window cracked a little bit just to get some fresh air in. And my neighbor's pulling out of his driveway. Anyways, so Xenoblade Chronicles 3, they dropped a new trailer, and they moved its release date from September 2022, that's what it was kind of originally slated, to July 29th. So it's kind of a rare move up in release dates. We don't see that too often, so that's kind of refreshing. Now, the trailer kind of showed off some gameplay, a little glimpse of the story elements, and then some of the combat, which I'm not going to pretend to fully understand any of this, but It looks cool. Looks good. One of the new items I kind of noticed, at least I think this is new, is they've kind of showed this almost element where you kind of take control of monsters, monster-looking creatures. I don't know if they're actually monsters, but it kind of reminded me of personas in the Persona series. So like when your character finally gets their first persona, and you get that as kind of a battle element. That's what it kind of reminded me of. And again, I'm not going to pretend to fully understand it or if that even what it is because I'm not a big Xenoblade guy. But that's what it looked like to me, and I got to say it looks cool. And man, we talked a little bit about this with the latest Nintendo Direct. Gosh, I can't talk. It's still early in the morning. We're getting through it. But I talked a little bit about this in the latest Nintendo Direct dropped, and they first showed off Xenoblade Chronicles 3. The I've never played a Xenoblade Chronicles game. Well, I've dabbled in the first game very, very, very briefly. But for me, like Xenoblade is a series I want to get into so bad because I think it looks so cool, and I've heard nothing but good things about it. Everyone, like so many people just love and adore that first game, and the second game seems to have been doing very well. Like it's very well received. I think it's definitely got its cult fans, and I just think it looks cool. It's one of those series that I really want to become a fan of, but I'm just so intimidated by the games because I've heard that they're so long, and there's so many side quests. It's just overwhelming. So for me, it just seems very intimidating to get into because of the game length. Because as we've talked, as you've heard me talk about through the show, it took me quite a while to get through Horizon. So I can't imagine how long it would take me to get through a Xenoblade game. But I really, really want to. I really, really want to. And maybe I have the best intentions. I would like to start the first Xenoblade to get through that game before Xenoblade 3 comes out. Not that I'm going to play Xenoblade 3 right away, because with July 29th, that actually comes out a week after the Live I Live release comes out. Now, I'm very much looking forward to Live I Live. Never played it. It's the first time it comes out in the West, and I think it looks awesome. So I'll probably be diving into that. But nonetheless, for Xenoblade fans out there, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 coming out midsummer, and I think that's really exciting. Now, the one I'm more excited for is Splatoon 3. Splatoon is my jam. Now, they dropped a trailer and the release date for this. And the trailer basically is just about 3 or so minutes long. It's basically of a multiplayer match from different perspectives, and they show off a variety of new abilities and weapons. And I got one of the abilities that they showed off is like this spider tank that you can get into. It kind of rolls around defensively, and it kind of reminded me of the spider tank in the latest Ratchet and Clank game. If you've played that, you know what I'm talking about. But it looks good, and I love Splatoon, man. That when that first game dropped out, I was on the Wii U. Yes, the Wii U. I picked it up just because I got it on a whim. I thought it looked cool, and I loved the multiplayer. And I'm not a big multiplayer guy these days. I used to be during like the 360 days, especially with Call of Duty and Halo. But man, Splatoon multiplayer, I think is just so much fun. And I think one of the things I like about it is the multiplayer matches are very short. They're quick hits. I think they're like 3 minutes long. And I love that it's a unique multiplayer in the sense that you're just trying to literally just cover the ground with your color, your team's color. You can take out enemies. There's different strategies, and I don't know. There are some really good players out there, but it's just fun. It's just really fun. One of the things though I hope they improve upon in the second game is the leveling up. Like I feel like leveling up in multiplayer took forever, and I know there's like little XP boosts you can acquire and stuff like that or purchase, but man, it just felt like it took forever. And so I think that the multiplayer could use some work on the progression, because one of the things I like and kind of sucks me in is getting that feeling of progression. So if they can kind of master that with Splatoon 3, man, I'll be hooked on this game for sure. But I think more importantly, I think one of the things that a lot of folks are concerned about and have questions about, myself included, is the campaign, the single player, the story mode. Is it going to change? Is it going to move away from what we've seen in the previous two games, which is very kind of level based, which is really unique? And I know there are some people that like it. But for me, it's okay. It's not it's not really the draw to the game for me. But I'm hoping they can maybe get away from that just a little bit and focus a little bit more on the story too. Now, I haven't played the Octo expansion for Splatoon 2, but I've heard that's really good and kind of has a nice story to it. So hopefully they can kind of build off that and have a cool story, maybe something unique for the single player. And when they first showed off Splatoon 3, when it was first announced, I think last year, at one of the Nintendo Directs, if I recall, they showed off kind of this almost different looking world of Splatoon. And I don't know, I got the sense that, hey, maybe we are going to look at the Splatoon world a little differently through a single player campaign. So I'm optimistic, cautiously optimistic, I should say, for whatever they do in the single player story. But we don't really know yet because they haven't really talked about that or shown anything. And that's also kind of one of the criticisms I've seen from a few folks online, is that from what we've seen of Splatoon 3, there's nothing really new here. It just seems like the same game being repackaged. And I think that's fair to say based on what we've seen, but to this at the same point, other games do this successfully. Call of Duty comes to mind, though for certain games you can make the argument that things change up enough. I'll give you that. But generally speaking, it's the same kind of formula over and over again. So who's to say they couldn't do that with Splatoon? We'll see. But again, I do think that's a fair criticism. It's still early on. We'll see how it pans out. Again, I'm really excited to see what they do in the single player sphere. Again, I love Splatoon, so I'm very much looking forward to this. I think that's super cool. It's coming out September 9th, and I am super stoked with that. And you know what this also means with Splatoon? It's the potential for more amiibos. And we haven't really talked about gaming and collectibles, but if you know me, especially from my YouTube days, I'm a big amiibo guy. There's just about every amiibo up until I stopped YouTube, but the unboxing is on my channel. And I even do some big unboxings on that if you want to go check out those super old videos. But amiibos, man, I love them. So maybe we'll get some more Splatoon amiibos, maybe a new set of Joy-Cons, which would be super dope. But Splatoon 2, man, or Splatoon 3, excuse me. I'm freaking excited. All right. Now let's get into some of the games I've been playing. I got a couple of games to talk about. One I think you'll be excited to hear. But first is I did start Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga. We talked about last week that I did pick up that game. I was like, I feel like this game is going to scratch that collectathon itch, and I'm going to jump into this before Elden Ring. And I did. And I got to say it's fun. There's so much to do, and there's lots of new mechanics that they've introduced. And I got to be honest, I'm kind of one of those players who doesn't want to miss anything when I'm playing a game. Like I have the FOMO, fear of missing out, when I play games. And with this game, it's almost crippling because you enter these kind of open areas to where you can explore and kind of find the different bricks and collectibles which are used to level up your character and different abilities and stuff like that. Your characters, I should say. And it's like crippling me because it's like I can't progress the story because I spend so much time just dinking around trying to look in every nook and cranny. Even though in the back of my mind, I know I can come back with different characters which are needed in certain spots to find these things. But man, so I started with episode 1 and I played a few levels of that. And it's good. I love the humor. There's little side quests that they put in. And I mentioned the leveling mechanics, but they have some kind of leveling up and progression and stuff like that. And there's just so much to get into here. It's really a good game, I gotta say. But I decided to put it down because I was like, okay, I'm playing this. It's good, but it's not really scratching the itch I thought it would. So I'll come back to it. But I did put it down because I was like, I'll come back. So I did go back to Returnal. Did a few runs to try to continue my platinum quest. And I made a little bit of progress, found a couple glyphs in the 2 levels that I need them. But I gotta say, it's a little discouraging because the glyphs and the recordings, which are what's left that I need for the platinum, it's based on RNG, so it's a little discouraging. When you do a run, you get through it. I'm looking through like every nook and cranny and nothing. And so then I got to start over again and then, do that cycle. It's just a little discouraging. So I did a few runs of that, put that down, and then I moved into Elden Ring. Finally decided to jump in. I was like, it's time. Let's do this. And first thing I got to say is I'm playing on the PlayStation 5, and the frame rate is rough. I'm shocked. I'm actually shocked. Because it's not, I'm playing on the performance mode. It's not 60 FPS. I mean, it's chugging anywhere from probably 30 to 45-ish, give or take. Like there's some moments where, okay, it's smooths out a little bit. And then there's some chunky moments where it's just stuttering. And I remember hearing about some of the technical issues. Again, I kind of avoided this game, all the media and press around it, somewhat blackout mode. But I did recall it having some technical issues, especially on the PS5. But I figured by now that stuff would have been patched and fixed, and it's not there yet. So that's a little disappointing and noticeable nonetheless, but I'll suffer through it. I did hear one thing, and I can't confirm it, but I did hear that I think it was Digital Foundry had said if you play the PS4 version on your PS5, you can get 60, like a steady 60 frames per second. So that's just wild to me. But I don't know if I'll try that, so to speak. But yeah, can't confirm that. But I remember hearing about that. So anyways, man, there's a lot to take in here with this game. I've played it for maybe 3 hours. Still very early on, just kind of exploring. I did make it to, I think, the first main story boss. But man, there's so much to take in. There's lots of new mechanics, little just new kind of things to learn, and two things that I think are really cool in terms of mechanics they introduced that really fit in with the open world are the way your flasks kind of fill up after defeating enemies or like a mob of enemies. I think that's great. I think that's perfect for fitting into this kind of open world atmosphere that they've created. And then the other thing, there's like these little statue stakes next to boss areas, and you can just respawn at the stake as opposed to a site of grace, I think is what they're called, basically a bonfire. I think that's really nice. So some nice touches to help kind of fit their formula into the open world. It's really good. I think it's great design. And the other thing about this game that's kind of bugging me, and it's probably just a me thing, but I gotta say it, is the rolling. It feels the rolling is just a little delayed. Like I press the button and then it's just like a millisecond delay before I actually start to roll. And for me, I'm a roller. I'm a dodger. I try to be very agile in my play style. And it's kind of bugging me. And I think maybe it's just a timing thing with certain enemies and bosses and stuff like that. But I don't know. I don't know what it is. But I can't. It just feels a little off to me. But maybe I'll get used to it. But the thing with this is, again, only being a couple hours in, is that I'm getting a little frustrated, as expected, with a Souls game. But I feel like a complete noob. Like I haven't played a Souls game really since Sekiro. That was the last one I played, so back in 2019. And I just feel like a total noob. I just, like a little baby. Like I feel like I gotta get good. And it's a little frustrating to me because I have played every Souls game. I've beaten them. And one of the things that I pride myself on is I've beaten all the bosses and stuff like that without, summoning another player. That's a personal thing on me that I didn't want to do. I want to take them on myself. And, making it to the first boss, I tried him, I don't know, a handful of times, got my ass kicked. And it's funny because the first time I tried him, I actually got his health halfway down. And I haven't been able to do that since, because I'm just trying to learn the mechanics, different ways to roll it and stuff like that. And I was getting a little frustrated, so I decided, it's like, I'll come back. Let me level up a bit. Let me go explore a little bit more, see maybe I can get a better weapon or something like that. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. But it's good. I want to play more of it, and yeah, we'll see. I'm surprised about the technical difficulties, and I think I'll get back into it. Like it has hooked me in such a way that I do think about it. Like it's kind of, I want to get back to it. I want to explore. I want to see what's out there. And actually, I was, I love the messages in the game. The messaging system is so unique to Dark Souls. It just works so well. And there was one message where like, oh, there's a monster ahead, and it was like against the wall. And I'm like, what? And like, oh, okay, maybe it like jumps down or something. And I was still kind of walking around exploring this area, and all of a sudden, this giant bear just appears out of nowhere. Like it just appears and just starts mauling me and just destroyed me in a matter of seconds. And I'm like, what the hell was that? Like, wild, dude. And because I feel so noob and just, I'm almost like scared to go into anything, that I'm very cautious in this game. And one of the things that's actually unique about this game that I'm doing in my play style is I'm trying to be very stealthy. So like there was this one of the first areas you go into the game that's kind of like run down kind of castle before this big gate where you kind of go on the main path. Lots of different enemies around there. And I found myself just kind of stealthing around just to kind of get behind them and take them out one by one that way. So it's interesting that this formula that they've provided, this open world formula with Elden Ring that they provided, is kind of causing me to play the game differently and think about it differently. This is really interesting. Like, I don't know, it's a fascinating game how they've kind of turned it on its formula. And then the horse is pretty cool. Horse combat. I took down a really big guy doing the horse combat. I know that's like a thing in Elden Ring. Because I tried to take this guy on just one-on-one without my horse, got my ass handed to me, came back later to fight this guy, and someone had a message like, try horse combat. And I was like, okay, let me try it. And beat him pretty easily. So it's just really interesting. Those are the Souls games for you. So lots of things to play around. And then with the horse as well, I gotta say, so they've got the little like, I don't know, wind tunnels almost looking that you can jump up, get really high. And I thought these were automatic. Like you get in your horse, you press the button, and you just automatically go to the next spot. No, you direct where you go. And so the first time I did one, I jumped up, went straight up super high, and right off a cliff and died. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. That is some bullshit. But nonetheless, Elden Ring, man, I'm playing it. I'll have more to say as I kind of get through it. Hopefully I can get past this first boss. And yeah, I want to go grind a little bit and just explore more and kind of get my guy beefed up and try to take down that first boss. But Elden Ring, man, I'm in. I'm feeling hooked, but I feel like a total noob. All right, 30 minutes or so in, let's get into the main topic. What happened to these 5 games? So as I mentioned at the top of the show, this topic I was inspired because Nintendo started dropping some pretty big release dates, and I kind of got thinking about a couple other games, and I'm like, what happened to these games? That's what I want to talk about today. I think it'd be a fun topic. So I picked out 5 games that most of them I'm excited for, but also good games that I feel like kind of went dark and I think are worthy of the question. What happened here? So we're going to dive into that a little bit. Now, first on my list of the 5 games is Hollow Knight Silksong. If you guys remember that, this is like the spin-off game from the Hollow Knight, the original Hollow Knight, which, by the way, if you haven't played Hollow Knight, dude, you gotta play that. If you like Metroidvanias, or I would even say if you like the Souls formula, Hollow Knight is fantastic. Beautiful art style, fun game. It's definitely got its difficult moments, and just what a great indie game. Seriously, freaking fantastic from Team Cherry. Now, Hollow Knight Silksong was originally announced back in February 2019, and then they showed off some gameplay in June 2019, and then has been dark since, if I'm not mistaken. It's gone dark. And I know this game started out as DLC for the original Hollow Knight, and then it just got kind of so big that they decided to make its own game. And from the gameplay we've seen, it looks awesome. Like you're playing the Silksong character, I think that's her name, with her needle and thread and all that, and it just looks awesome. New abilities and stuff like that. So from what we've seen in this game, it looks super promising. And I'm assuming, and I'm going to call it the Modelo virus. You know what I'm talking about. I know some platforms don't like it when you say that, so I'm going to use that term. But I'm pretty sure the Modelo virus and the whole pandemic thing probably had an impact on their development. And one thing I didn't know is that Team Cherry is 3 people. I went to their website just to kind of see if they had any, updates or anything, and it's only 3 people. So I'm sure, especially with just being a very small team, that had an impact on their development. And I'm pretty sure this game is just super ambitious that with such a small team, it's kind of causing them a little bit of delay and maybe being perfectionists and just so much to live up to from the first game. They're really taking their time here, but it's just weird that it's gone dark now for really almost 3 years. And anytime there's like an Indie World or Nintendo Direct that comes up, because it's first coming out to, I believe, Switch and PC. So it'll be Nintendo focused. So anytime any of those directs come out, I'm looking for Silksong. I'm like, where's Silksong? Give me the release date. And part of me is like, maybe they're just going to stealth drop it. Like day and date. They got a direct and they're like, oh, one more thing. Silksong's out now. They're just going to drop one of those bombs. And it's like, what? I could totally see them doing that. That's why I'm always tuning into those. I mean, obviously they're fun to watch, and you're looking out for those news announcements, but I feel like that could happen with Silksong. But we'll see. Because actually, I think they did that with the original Hollow. So Hollow Knight first came to PC. Was this back in 2017, I think? And then it's funny because I was actually on a trip to Texas with my wife, and then they dropped Hollow Knight. And I was like, oh shit, I gotta pick this up. So I did. Like they just dropped it. Here it is. It's out now. And I had to go pick it up. So I could totally see them doing the same thing with Silksong. We'll see though. But I'm super looking forward to Silksong. It's just weird that it's gone dark. Hopefully nothing major's happened to the game. And hopefully we can see it soon. This next one on the list, again, kind of sticking with Nintendo here on a few of these, is Metroid Prime 4. And I only bring this up because I know a lot of people are hyped for this game. Myself included, I gotta say. Though I've only played the original Metroid Prime back in 2002, I think is when that game came out. I don't know. I played it on the game. That's when I got my GameCube, and that's when I played it. I got it during winter break, so around Christmas, and I was just obsessed with that game. Like I played it so much. It's awesome. But I never played the second and third in the trilogy, which I know came to the Wii and have motion controls. But nonetheless, Metroid Prime 4, it's a big one. I know a lot of people are looking forward to this one. And this game was originally announced back in 2017, if you guys can recall that. And it was just that little like splash trailer, got everyone hyped. It's coming to the Switch. They're bringing back this franchise. And I think back in 2019, it was reported that the project had been scrapped and restarted, now over with Retro Studios. So 2 years after its original announcement, they scrapped it all and started over. And it's been 3 years, almost 3 years since. And it's just been dark. Like, I know every Nintendo Direct, all the Nintendo super fans, all the little Twitter gamers are like, oh, we're going to see Metroid Prime 4. That's what I want. And it's like, nah, dude. This game, I think, is in development hell. I don't know what happened particularly, but I think it's pretty clear that either something isn't jiving or it's just not up maybe to Nintendo's standards, and that's why they scrapped it. Decided to move it to retro. I don't know, man. But the outlook for this game is just not good because it's been 5 years since its original announcement. It's been restarted, and it's just nothing. Nothing. The only thing we really have is that splash screen. No screenshots, no concept art, no gameplay, nothing. And I don't know, man. Like I said, I'm excited for this game. I think this could be an absolute banger for the Switch, especially with the success of Metroid Dread. It's certainly in everyone's minds now. And if they can, bring back a 2D Metroid style game and have it be successful and I would say fairly popular, then I certainly think they could do that with Metroid Prime 4, because Metroid Prime is just kind of this beloved series. Though I don't know how well it sold. I'll be honest, I don't have sales numbers on that. So it could be like a Zelda case where, it's everyone likes it and loves it, so to speak, but the sales aren't that great. Anyways, now this also kind of ties into the long rumored Metroid Prime trilogy. This has been long rumored for the Switch, and I hope they bring that out. And from what I've heard of the rumors, is like this game has been done, and I'm assuming it's just to no pun intended, prime people for Metroid Prime 4, and that's why they just haven't released it. But I would love to see that, because I know they did back on the Wii towards the end of its life cycle, they did a Metroid Prime trilogy. And if you have a physical copy of that, man, that is worth a lot of money. And I beat myself up that I never picked that up, because I remember I could have found it for pretty cheap back in the day. But they did release a digital version of it, which I did buy on my Wii. So I have that. But I think what I hope for this trilogy, if they bring it to the Switch, is that they give us an option for more modern controls. So not to use the motion controls. So you could use the motion controls with the Joy-Cons and still do it that way. But I would love for them to see it kind of more just modernized controls with the controller. That would be fantastic. I would love to see that. And I would love to play those games like that. I think that'd just be so awesome. And it's just a great trilogy to bring over to the Switch to get people hyped up for the next Metroid Prime game. But I'm assuming they want to make more progress and have something more to show before they even announce the Metroid Prime trilogy coming over to the Switch and give us some sort of hope of that. But yeah, man, I don't know. It's hard to be optimistic on this game just because it's clear that this is a troubled game development. So we'll see. Only time will tell, but I wouldn't expect anything from this for a bit more. Now, another game on this list is, keeping in with Nintendo, Bayonetta 3. Now, I put this one on here because this one has kind of went dark up until recently. But it's still a little dark. We still don't know about when this game's coming out. So this game was also originally announced all the way back in 2017 at the Game Awards. If you guys remember that, it was kind of a big hit. And then it went dark pretty much up until 2021, late last year, when we finally saw some gameplay. And I gotta say, the gameplay does look awesome. It looks good. It looks really, really good. And if you've played Bayonetta 2, you know Bayonetta 2 is absolutely fantastic. And I remember when that game came out on the Wii U originally as a Nintendo exclusive. And this is from Platinum Games, if you guys recall that. But I remember when that game came out, and I hadn't played the original, didn't really know much about these games, but that game, like from some of the website reviewers, gave it 10 out of 10. Like, this game is amazing. And that caught my attention. I was like, oh, really? Like 10 out of 10? That this game's that good? Okay, let me look into it. And so I think for Christmas later that year, I got a copy, and I still have my Wii U copy sealed because I never did start playing it, but I have a sealed Wii U copy of Bayonetta 2. And then, so I never got around to playing it. And then they did the Bayonetta 1 and 2 port over to the Switch, and that was my first experience with both of those games. I played Bayonetta 1 on the Switch, and then finally Bayonetta 2. And these games are awesome. These are really fun games. They fit in like with the Devil May Cry style of like, not fighting games, but kind of action games, and very kind of weird in certain degree. And Bayonetta is certainly, as some would say, a very sexualized character, but that's kind of just how she rolls, you know? She's this witch. She's an attractive witch, if you will, and she plays into that, and there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Just, you want to talk about strong female characters? There you go. She's a badass. And she looks good doing it. So there's nothing wrong with that. And so, yeah, Bayonetta 2, man. Bayonetta 1 was good. But Bayonetta 2, like, I get why it did so well. But just because the combat feels so good. So good. And it's, fun. So really kind of these out there stories and stuff like that. But good story, fun gameplay, and fun, good to look at. I don't know. Like I said, strong female character. She looks good doing it. But yeah, Bayonetta 3, up until we got that recent gameplay, it'd gone dark. And so now we finally have some gameplay. We still don't have a release date, though I think it's pretty fair to assume 2022. since we've finally seen some of this game. But I think the other thing to consider here is that we know Platinum Games isn't really in the best shape right now. So I know that they had recent releases like Babylon's Fall, and we all know that game kind of just it fell to silence. Like it just was dead on arrival, so to speak. And it's also been reported that Platinum has reached back out to Microsoft to restart Scalebound. If you guys remember that game, that was going to be that Xbox exclusive with like, I don't know, the fighters, and they were wearing like headphones and they were fighting dragons and stuff like that. I don't know, that game never really looked good to me, but they want to restart that project. And then it was also reported that they're open to acquisition. They've been vocal about that. And so that just tells me that something's going on over there. Something ain't right over at Platinum. I don't know if it's a funding issue. I don't know if they've just spread themselves too thin because they're working on all these projects with all these different publishers. I don't know, man. It's just not good over there. And I have to imagine that chaos has impacted the development of this game, which is kind of why it's been dark for so long. So who knows? I hope they find success with this game, because the thing with Platinum is they're so hit and miss, but when they hit good. Or hit well. Hit well? Is that maybe the more proper way to say that? I don't know. I'm not the most the best with the English language, so to speak. It was never my forte in high school. But yeah, I don't know. I hope they come out. I hope this game lives up to the potential and the expectations of the first two games. So we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if we see it this year. I could see, maybe a fall release date. But I mean, Nintendo's already got some bangers coming out this year. I mean, Nintendo's going to have, I think, a quiet but good year. I think Nintendo will be overshadowed a bit with, the likes of Elden Ring, Horizon, certainly Starfield later this year. I think will overshadow Nintendo, but I don't think you can like understate how good a year Nintendo's having. I mean, they had Pokemon already, the Kirby game. They've got they had Project Triangle Strategy. They've got Live a Live. They've got Splatoon. They got Xenoblade. And that's just all up until the end of summer. So we don't know what their fall looks like. And there's rumors of, maybe another Zelda port. There's rumors. We know Breath of the Wild 2 is coming out in 2023. I mean, the Pokemon game, there's new Pokemon games coming. So Nintendo still just chugging along, putting out high quality games. All right, now this next one, this is the one game on the list that I'm not and have never been excited for, but I wanted to put it on here because it's one of those games that kind of fits in this monster that, like, what the hell happened here? Like, where is this game? And that is Skull and Bones. And this is a game from Ubisoft, if you guys remember, and it was this pirate ship open world game, basically straight out of Assassin's Creed. Now, this game was also originally announced way back in E3 2017. Okay, let me pause right there. Take a step back. This game was originally announced back at E3 2017. Okay, we got that. I enunciated that. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble speaking today, but this is what you get sometimes with just a candid podcast. We're just rolling with the punches here. So, okay. Anyone remember E3? That was a thing. So yeah, back in 2017 at E3. That's a long time ago, almost 5 years ago. And then I didn't really fully understand the history, but as I was kind of this game and going through the Wikipedia. So this game was set to release in Q3, Q4 of 2018. Then it was delayed to 2019, then delayed again to 2020, and then delayed again to 2021. But it's mostly we haven't seen anything of this game since 2018 in terms of footage, screenshots, trailer, anything. That's wild. That's absolutely wild. And like I mentioned, this is basically the ship battles from Assassin's Creed, the Assassin's Creed series, turned into a game. It's at least what it seemed. And this game is just super deep in development hell. It seems like this. I mean, having delay after delay after delay, like, what the hell is going on here? Like, what's going on behind the scenes? Now, I did find an article from Video Games Chronicle that Ubisoft stated that the game took a new direction and was rebooted in 2020, shifting its focus to a multiplayer first game. And I put multiplayer in quotes there. And so that, I think that kind of gives us an indication of what happened here. Because this game was originally described as a game where players could explore the Indian Ocean either solo or with friends through a single player campaign. And then obviously I think there were multiplayer battles, ship battles that you could do and stuff like that. So I think with that shift to multiplayer first in 2020, I think that gives us an indication here that probably internally they were working on the single player component, maybe had something, and then this kind of shift towards live service games and all that kind of got them thinking, we need to make this a live service game and shift it that way and be multiplayer focused. So that doesn't surprise me. So this is certainly going to come out as a live service game, and that's just the way it works. But man, this game, I've never been optimistic about this game. I never thought it looked good. I'll be candid. I just the ship battles from Assassin's Creed, from what I've played, was never really my favorite part of those games anyways. So I didn't know how this game is going to work. Now, I think the idea of kind of exploring the world, as a pirate ship or something like that, and through a single player campaign, seems interesting. And I think that could be done well. I like the idea of that, but every time I've seen this game, it's like so focused on the multiplayer. Even back then, it seemed like that it was just like, this does not look fun to me. Like, I don't want to, who's going to do 5v5 ship battles in this Skull and Bones Assassin's Creed game? And now we're going to get a live service version of that. Like, I'm sorry, that just does not sound interesting whatsoever. But I'm actually surprised this project hasn't been scrapped altogether, because it's just been so long, and you've like started this game over to make it a live service multiplayer focused game. And on top of that, all the other crap that's going on in Ubisoft. And we didn't talk, it's not in any of the news or anything, but I've actually started seeing articles come out that Ubisoft is now open to being acquired. And when we talk about all this industry consolidation, and now these big publishers are just like, yeah, we'll take money, we'll be bought out. That's just wild, dude. And I think for like Activision, I think this is another case where, because they've had so much news about, all the misconduct, sexual impropriety at these companies, and just kind of, not the best working conditions, at least allegedly, we should say, that I think some of these execs and bigwigs are kind of looking for a way out. Like, they don't want to deal with this anymore, so let's just sell the company. That's at least how I perceive it. I don't know if that's the case, but I can totally see that. And I think with Ubisoft, man, Ubisoft has certainly had its ups and downs, I should say. And like, I really feel like with Assassin's Creed Origins, when they kind of rebooted the Assassin's Creed franchise, that was a renewal for them. I thought they found some success with The Division. And Far Cry is this kind of very consistent franchise for them. And so they've got some good stuff, but then this just recent insistence on like all these games are, there's this free-to-play Assassin's Creed game that's going to be a live service game. Then they're doing this free-to-play Division game that's a live service game. And it's just like, why? And they also have success with what is it? Rainbow Six Siege? Like, that game is a wild comeback story. And that still very much played today. It's in esports and all that stuff. So they found great success there. Extraction, I don't think is seeing that level of success, but they've got their niches and these games that are very successful for them, and then they just want to turn everything into the same thing. Like, once they find a successful formula, they just use that formula for all their games, and I don't understand why they do that. So I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on with Ubisoft. But Skull and Bones, I'm not optimistic for. Maybe we'll see it, around summertime this year, but I don't know. I don't know what happened to this game exactly, but I got to be honest, I don't really care. I don't think it looks good. And the last game on my list is Little Devil Inside. And this was, if you recall, this is that PlayStation 5 exclusive game. And this game, I remember being announced, at least for me, back in June of 2020 at the PS5 reveal. However, there's another one. I was looking through its Wikipedia, and I learned some history on this game that I didn't know. So I guess this game was originally announced through a Kickstarter campaign back in April of 2015, and then later had a release window in the fall of 2016. They missed that. The devs came back and said, with a trailer, we're shooting for a 2018 release date on PC first. Then it went dark until that PS5 reveal. And then after the PS5 reveal, it mostly went dark again until it came back in October of 2021 during a state of play and finally showed off some gameplay. And so when I first saw this game at the PS5 reveal, it looked kind of like this action-adventure game where you kind of go to these various levels and take on unique enemies and kind of hunting down these types of monsters. I don't know, that's just how I perceived this game in my mind. It's clearly not that, because when they came back with the gameplay, it's more survival-focused. It's got survival elements, and it's about open-world exploration and stuff like that, and that wasn't as exciting to me, I gotta be honest, as this original idea is how I perceived this game. But it's really unique, nonetheless. And so, I don't know. It's an interesting concept, an interesting game. I didn't realize that it's been so, like back in 2015, that was April of 2015 is when it was first announced. That's 7 years ago. That's wild. That's a long time, especially for what's presumably, a smaller game. It's certainly not a AAA game, but now it's got this, Sony, initial exclusivity. I think it's just a timed exclusivity with PlayStation when it comes out, but that's a long time, man. And I'm just kind of curious what's going on here. Like why the kind of the delays? I'm sure some funding had to do with it, because originally launching on PC and then all of a sudden you show up at the PS5 reveal as kind of a PlayStation exclusive, or at least a timed exclusive. That tells me that maybe there was some financial woes. Sony swooped in and said, hey, we'll help fund this project if you give us exclusivity on the PS5. So I could totally say, I'm pretty sure, I would assume that's what happened here. And who knows? I don't know what's going on here, but it looks interesting. I don't know. Check out the gameplay if you haven't looked up this game. Little Devil Inside. It looks interesting. I don't know. For me now, because it's more, I'm not big in like survival games. So I'm going to kind of wait and see on this one, see when it comes out, watch some gameplay, watch some Twitch streamers, just see what this game's all about, see how it reviews before I kind of make up a mind on it. But this is an interesting one where, I learned a little bit more about it, and man, it's been so long. And we still don't have an official release date for it, even though we've seen some gameplay. So, again, I think it's slated for 2022, but nothing's concrete at this point. And that's all I got for you guys today. Those are 5 games where I asked the question, where are these games? What happened to them? So let me know if I missed any games. What are some games out there that you're like, where is this game? What happened to it? Drop it down in the comments below. And remember, please, comment on the podcast, rate the podcast on whatever platform you're consuming it on. It helps the show, and I could really use some ratings, and I appreciate the feedback. So hit me up. Let me know down in the comments below. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Some good conversation. We got some bangers coming from Nintendo. Fun conversation about some games. And man, this Game Pass conversation, I feel like is just going to be a regular appearance on the show with Game Pass, PlayStation Plus, all the rest. So exciting times in the gaming world. So hope you guys are doing awesome out there. Stay safe. And remember, new podcast episodes Mondays, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on your favorite platforms. Stay tuned, subscribe, all the rest. Until next time, I'm Bonfire, and I will see you online.